Good old Michael Wolff has done it yet again. He just dropped the ugliest version of an old rumor. Trump didn't turn on Jeffrey Epstein out of morals. He turned on him out of money. Well, of course he did. If Wolff's right, this was never about having a conscience. The words Trump and conscience in the same sentence is an oxymoron. It was cash flow, leverage, and the cold logic of self-preservation. And the receipts start with a mystery check for $130 million from a bank directly connected to the Epstein world.
A friend of mine, talking about donors, a friend of mine, a man that's great, I'm not going to use his name unless he lets me do it. Susie can tell you about this, but he called us the other day and he said, I'd like to contribute any shortfall you have because of the Democrat shutdown. And today he sent us a check for $130 million.
His name is Timothy Mellon. He's a billionaire, a backer of Donald Trump, and he's the heir to the Mellon fortune. It's like this huge bank. And here he is. He's kind of like a low-profile billionaire. He doesn't do a lot of press, so you might not have heard of him before. His father, Paul Mellon, is listed in the Epstein flight logs. He's logged twice, so it appears he flew on the plane multiple times. The Bank of New York Mellon, where he's obviously connected, was recently sued by a woman who was abused by Epstein, alleging that the banks knowingly provided financial services that enabled him to conduct his operation for years.
Trump calls it a generous friend. Reporters call it Timothy Mellon, heir to a bank being sued by an Epstein survivor. They say nothing to do with Epstein, nothing at all, of course it isn't. But the Mellon orbit keeps aggressively brushing the Epstein story. Therefore, every giant check comes with a flashing question. Why now and for what reason? We're not claiming guilt by association, we're pointing out the pattern. Where there is massive suspicious amounts of money, there is often Epstein and there is often Trump. Because Wolff says the real fracture wasn't just about money. It was a real estate heist that looked like a Russian laundering job.
In 2004, Epstein believed himself to be the high bidder on a piece of real estate in Palm Beach, a house. $36 million was his bid. He took his friend Trump around to see the house to advise him on how to move the swimming pool. Trump thereupon went around Epstein's back and bid $40 million for the house and got the property. Epstein, who was well acquainted, in fact, deeply involved with Trump's scattered finances, understood that he didn't have $40 million to pay for this house. Now, if that was the case, it was someone else's $40 million. At the time, Epstein believed this to be the $40 million of a Russian oligarch by the name of Rybolev. Less than 2 years later, this same house that Trump had bought for $40 million was sold for $95 million. And it was, in fact, sold to Mr. Rybolev. This is all a red flag of money laundering.
If true, that's not friendship. That's a shiv to the back of your best friend. They'll insist this was just a great savvy deal. But the timeline, it reads like a dirty money laundry cycle. Buy cheap with suspected funds, flip the expensive property to the presumed source, and pocket a cool $55 million profit. Therefore, Epstein goes from wingman to witness to a potentially massive financial crime, and witnesses are dangerous to men who consider silence a business expense. So what happens when the witness threatens to sing?
What Epstein did, and he was furious about losing this house. I mean, there's something about these guys that nothing rouses them so much as a real estate betrayal. Epstein, after the sale of this house, after Trump went around his back, got this house, Epstein began to threaten him. He began to threaten him with lawsuits. he began to threaten him with going to the press and saying that Trump was a front man for a money laundering deal. Trump panics at this point, and Epstein believed, and he believed to his dying day, that it was Trump who went to the police, Trump who was fully acquainted with what was going on at Epstein's house, fully acquainted for many years. Trump went to the police and, as Epstein said, dropped the dime on him. That is to say, informed the police of what was going on, and an investigation began, and all of Epstein's legal problems for the next 15 years began to unfold.
Two crooks on a pirate ship. One threatens to expose a $55 million scam. The other weaponizes a sex crime investigation to save his financial hide. They preach honor among thieves, but honor among a 34 times convicted felon and Jeffrey Epstein? You've got to be joking. Therefore, Wolff's version ends with Trump flipping on his best friend first, not for moral clarity, but for a preemptive self-preservation. And Wolff says the timing wasn't an accident either. The moment the story goes public, the clock starts ticking on Epstein.
This story about this piece of real estate and their falling out was first published in June 2019. It was published actually in my book, Siege, the second book I had written about the Trump White House. Epstein had recounted this story to me. I put it in this book. Epstein at that moment was in Paris. He read the book. He called me with some alarm, and he said he was afraid that he might have said too much. 3 weeks later, he returned to the United States from Paris and was promptly arrested on the tarmac of Teterboro Airport in New Jersey when his plane landed.
That's not proof of causation. That's a clock you can hear ticking. They'll say coincidence, but in Trump world, coincidence always seems to cash out to his benefit. When a White House treats a birthday note like a national security breach, you don't have a friendship, you have a mutually assured destruction. Therefore, the story keeps circling back to the same place. Money first, loyalty next. Trump didn't drop a dime for justice. He dropped a dime to keep his $55 million and stay out of jail himself. If you want to understand Trump's morality, don't read his posts. Posts lie, of course they do. Look at his actions, and you will see very clearly the man has no morals whatsoever. In the end, Trump didn't drop a dime for justice. He dropped a dime on his best friend to keep himself out of jail. And that is the core of the monster. If you want to see more stories like this, leave a comment down below and hit the wee subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video, consider sharing it with your friends because it really helps a lot. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one.